On this episode of Street Rat Garage, we are rescuing a 2000 Crown Victoria that was abandoned by the police. So the story on this is that it came from the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. This is a 2000 Crown Victoria. Now, it just came through an auction like last year. So they've had this car for 20 years, just over 20 years. So what happened with this car is it served its life as a patrol car, and then it somehow wound up being a pool car, but a pool car apparently nobody cared about. So this one sat for a while in a parking lot, was used occasionally, got moved inside one of the storage facilities, and just sort of sat there. Of course, you know what happens, the battery goes dead, it sits around, and you get moisture in the engine. So apparently at some point this alternator went bad, it cracked, it's completely locked up. They never fixed it. They didn't send it to their fleet maintenance to have anything done with it. So it just sat around probably 5 to 6 years, just not being used in the storage facility, and it was forgotten about until some sort of internal audit happened and they wanted to know, where's this police car at? So they went and found it. They picked it up, saw what bad shape it was in, and just sent it through the auction. So they didn't care what happened to this car. So pretty much just ripped all the decals off with a metal scraper. As you can see, this is where it said IMPD, to protect and serve, all the logos on it, where it said Metropolitan Police Department, police, but all of this you can see is just scraped off with a scraper in it. It's just really bad because they didn't figure anybody would do anything but junk this car, and they weren't worried about making money off of it. You see where it had the numbers up on the top. But yeah, this is fresh out of the auction. And if we have a look inside of here, we can see more evidence of the rush job they did on tearing it apart. The keys in the ignition. There we go. Stop dinging. So this is not the spotlight that came with the car. This is one I had, so I just tossed it in there because the spotlight was missing. You can see, whoops, you can see the lights, dome light. The panels were just all ripped off, and the wiring was just stripped off in order to, get all the lights and stuff off. It wasn't plugged. This is where the wiring went in for the light bar. So just the center console and everything was just ripped out, and yeah, it just nobody cared. This car has 126,000 miles on it, which is not a lot for a Crown Vic, and the police department oftentimes keeps them around, for as long as they're still driving well, and it doesn't cost them too much to repair the car. If the repair cost is more than they figure the value of the car is, and they ship it off. Well, they didn't want anything to do with this car, so it got shipped off. It was bought by a friend that I know, right out of the police auction. He buys a bunch of them, so I got a hold of him, and we made the deal, and I got this pretty cheap. The only deal is we took the catalytic converters because they're worth a fortune nowadays, but it is what it is. No big deal. We're gonna straight pipe it anyway, but let's go ahead and fire this up real quick so you can hear how it runs. These cars can sit around a long time, and they pretty much just start up without any problems. The only thing that goes bad is maybe the fuel pump every now and then in the battery. Yeah, it's a little bit loud. Actually, it's a lot loud. It runs just fine. There's no alternator belt on it, so we can't let it run very long, so the water pump's not working. But it sounds like it should sound. So there's no real revival work we have to do on this in order to get it run. It runs and it moves. I haven't taken it down the street. It's so loud, and the brakes are weak too, so we have to look at the brakes. Runs just fine. Maybe get some pipe and delete on the catalytic converters there, and fix the headlight, the alternator. But first thing we're going to do, this is filthy. It's been sitting literally years, probably 5 to 7 years, and it's disgusting. So let's grab the power washer while it's still a little bit warm and not below freezing, and get some of the filth off of that and see what we're dealing with underneath. I'm gonna go ahead and spray it down first with my magic concoction, also known as straight gasoline. I mean, it's that dirty. Normally I would mix this with some spray of some sort, some glass cleaner, anything, but it's pretty nasty. All right, let's get this party started. All right, well, it's starting to look a lot better. I've done half the car, and you can see the difference here. Before, after. Before. And after. You want to see how bad it was? Watch this. Yeah, I would say that's more than a little dirty. And the power washing is complete. Looks 110% better. And yeah, it's still not clean. This is just blowing off all the crud that's been on there for years and years. So what we need to do next is come in here. We need to get rid of these stripes, and we're going to go ahead and do that the right way, and not with just a metal scraper and rip the paint off of it. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the heat gun, and let's get to removing some of these stripes. Went ahead and grabbed the old heat gun. This is one of the tools that you probably hardly ever use, but when you need it, it's nice to have. It's cheap enough, so just go out to Harbor Freight, grab you a cheap heat gun. Just keep it laying around somewhere. Well, this is the best I can do with the heat gun. I got this little bit at the top that the sun really baked in there and made it very difficult to get off. This has been on here so long that it's just thin and brittle and just keeps breaking off. So maybe we can get a flappy disc, a soft one, and come in here and get the rest of this off, because it's going to take forever. I come back from the store and I couldn't find that resin ball rubber thing. It's just rubber or some sort of urethane that's on the end of a disc, and it's not abrasive. It spins and it rips this stuff off. I can't find it, so we're back to just using the heat gun and peeling it off by hand. So it's going to take a little bit longer, but you do what you got to do. It started raining outside, so I pulled it in here to the garage. It's going to be cold and rainy for the next few days, so we're going to strip and wax this thing up and maybe do some work in the garage. I don't like working in the garage, but it's winter in the Midwest. So I'm just going to go back and heat up all these stripes and try to get a big long pull off of some of these things. It's really hard to get it off the top. The bottom section's not so bad. The top section is what the issue is. So try to pull this off. Maybe do something with this little bit of rust right here, and just get this thing cleaned up. Maybe do the rims as well while we're in here. Okay, that's one fender done. That took about 30 minutes to strip that down and get the glue off, run the buffer over it, and get it shined up. I mean, this is not a great fender, but it's what we have to work with. So I got 1, 2, 3 more panels. I went ahead and did the other side at night, so that side's already done. We just have this one side to finish up, and then we can get to maybe some of the mechanical issues of this car so we can get it out. You might be wondering why I'm doing a Crown Vic. It's not the standard old school car that we usually do, but I got a good deal on this car, and it's been sitting around the storage lot for a while, and it's time to get things cleaned up and put some money back into our other projects. And also, these Crown Vics are going to become collectible as often as they get used in circle track racing and just crashed up. There's a whole lot of these cars that were produced since 1998 to, I believe, 2007. So that's millions and millions of cars, but you know, hundreds of thousands of them were destroyed by the police and by taxi services, and you know, thousands of them are being used demolition derby, circle track, all that stuff. So they're going away quickly. The numbers are dwindling on Crown Vics, and you are starting to see the prices slowly go up on these cars. So we need to start saving some of these and not just trashing them all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and finish taking these stripes off and buffing this car out. Then we'll come back and have a look and see how good it looks. Okay, so it was a battle, but I got everything done. The stickers are off. The car is all buffed out and shiny again. Minus the rust and the scrape marks from where they originally took the stickers off. But let's have a look at it real quick here. See, we still have rust and you know all that other good stuff, but can you see the shine there and the glare of the lights? It looks a lot better. Probably looks a little better in person. You can see the glare, but yeah, it's nice and shiny. Even the paint flakes are shiny. So I mean, we have that. The worst spot on it is here in this quarter panel. They really did a job right through here, but it's still a shiny mess. And for some reason, it got sprayed here. I don't know what happened here. More paint came off and it just came in and shot it real quick, but this is softer and more faded than the rest of this, so I think a little body work was done, but the deck lid and everything looks good. The numbers, man, I could not get this glue off of the top. It is on there. If I came through with maybe some gasoline and rubbed that out, it would probably come out, but I don't know. Just as long as I don't sell it to a tall person, it should be okay. Now, there was a big dent here in the bumper cover where they backed into something or somebody ran into it. So what I did is I just heated all this corner up with a heat gun, just got in there and pushed it out real good. So it's a little bit wavy yet, but way better than what it was. The dent's gone. So let's, one more thing I wanted to show you on the brakes. So I was just in here looking at the brakes and there's no fluid in there, so I was wondering if there was a brake line broke, and sure enough, it's kind of in an unusual place. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that line? Just some light in there. This line at the very top of it, there's a pinhole right there. So it's a weird place for it to burst. It's got that flex line on it, and then that line just leads into the anti ABS system right there. So we should just be able to take it loose from up here and down there, just fab up a new line for it. Hopefully that'll do it. Hopefully it's not rusted down at the bottom. You can see on the A-arms where there's a lot of scale type of rust. That's usually from sitting around in moisture for quite a while. So set outside and then inside for years, you'll get that. But we power wash the engine so it looks a lot better. We still got to do that alternator because it is totally locked up there, and the casing on the alternator is cracked. So I think moisture got in the alternator maybe as well or something, and I don't know, it cracked and froze up the housing, froze up the internals on the housing. So that's another thing. We need an oil cap. I'd like to get the cover that goes over it if I can find one at the junkyard, but let's get the brakes working and then we'll go from there. Also on the to-do list is put the interior back together, put the kick panels on, and whatever other panels are just laying around here. The A-pillar panel is on the floor, the dome lights on the ground. Put the spotlight in, and hopefully I can find this panel and all this other good stuff. There's a toggle switch here. It says turn on, turn off. This is where they would have had a laptop, and this turning this on would turn on the inverter that runs the laptop, and usually the laptop had a little light on there to illuminate the keyboard. So that's what that's for. Put the light back in there, put the seat back in there. The back cell panels are out, so this must have, no, that's probably where the lights ran and the computer wiring run through that side of the car, probably. So yeah, that's how you can tell they just sent this one to auction. Nobody owned it in between the time that it went from the police to here. So definitely straight out of the PD on this one. So I think I'm going to go ahead and order the alternator for this and start assembling the interior, and then we'll come back and have a look and see what it looks like on the inside. I'm going to vacuum this out, get all those panels put on it, and make it a little more presentable inside. So I'm going to do that next. I'll bring you back and you can have a look and see what that looks like. Well, I'm not quite done cleaning out the interior yet. I just got started, but I just wanted to show you the size of that mouse nest right there in the glove box. That is a big boy. So yeah, definitely something living in here for many years. That is disgusting. So let's just go ahead and suck that out real quick. Oh, that's a big one. Man, that's a big see where they were eating on some of the stuff, the owner's manual and paperwork for the car. Yeah, still a little bit left up in there. We'll clean the rest of that out. Here is something I did not know about Crown Victorias. Underneath this A-pillar cover is a plug that has never been used and a little hole right here. Apparently, what it looks like to me is that these are come factory equipped in the police package to accept dual spotlights. So it looks, you know, pretty much like that. If you can see that, that hole is, that's not a factory hole. That one's drilled out aftermarket apparently, but on the outer, but the inner will probably look like this. So you have the option. These already come, you know, wired for your spotlight. So all you have to do is drill the hole on through and drill it into your A-pillar cover, and you already have your little wire there with power running to it. There's probably a separate fuse for this, so it's not, you know, a live circuit, but you got power right there, and I did not know that. So they come already equipped for dual spotlights on these cars. Okay, we're back, and the interior is now clean. I vacuumed the carpets, I put the panels back on, found the one for under the steering wheel, the A-pillars, all the way back to the C-pillars and the back seat. So everything is nice and tidy on the inside. So let's move on. So next up will be the brakes. We got that hole in the brake line right here by the master cylinder. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull that out, and we're going to have a look at it and see if we can't just build us a new brake line for that. The brake line's off. I just wanted to show you the hole right here that is in that brake line. So it yeah, right there. I don't know if you can see that too good or not, but there's a big hole right there in the brake line. Unusual to be in that particular spot, but it is there. So we're gonna see if we can't fabricate us up one of these and stick it back in so we can have some brakes. Okay, so the brake line is now installed. It is not the best job, but I had to put a little loop in there for the expansion. The other one had a mesh type expansion on it, and that one didn't, so I had to make a little loop there. And I wanted to show you this. I saw when I was looking in here, we have another mouse nest stuck in here. So that would have been bad if we got it nice and hot. At least it would have been incredibly smelly. So I'm going to rip that out of there, and then it is time for the alternator. So we got to get that alternator yanked out of there, put a belt on there, and then we should be ready for a test drive. I just wrapped up everything that needed to be done underneath the hood of the Crown Vic. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what we have accomplished here. So I went to the old pull-aparts and just got this alternator. This is actually the standard version. It's not the high capacity police version of the high output alternator, but the high output alternator at the store was like 250 bucks, and I wasn't going to pay that, so I just paid like $30 for this one at the pull-aparts, and this doesn't have any more police equipment on it, so that should be just fine. It'll serve just like a regular old Marquise or civilian Crown Victoria, and that's perfectly fine. I went ahead and threw some spark plugs in here. These are not the easiest thing to put spark plugs in. You got to pull that fuel rail up, and that one, the other side is like right above the throttle body. So I don't know who designed this, but definitely not a good design in my opinion. Going straight down, you got all that debris that gets in there as well. So yeah, I went ahead, it was missing this pulley, this idler pulley, so I had to grab an idler pulley, and I just went ahead and grabbed the serpentine belt that was in the salvage yard too. So just about all salvage yard parts. I haven't done anything with the exhaust, so we're just going to go ahead and leave that alone. It was taken off at the manifolds, and they used a smoke wrench on it, so it would have to be drilled out and all that fun stuff. we're just gonna send this car down the road, and the next owner can put exhaust on it if they want to put exhaust on it. It has from like the middle of the car that was behind the catalytic converters, the muffler, all the way back, so you can just straight pipe that. You just have to drill the pipe, the exhaust manifolds, and throw a couple bolts in there, put your downturns in, and it'll be done. It's going to get cold in a couple days, so we need to move this out of the garage and get it gone now. So let's close her up and go for a ride. Okay, time for our test drive. There we go. It cranked over a little bit slow because it's not a very good battery either. So it's charging. Yeah, it's charging just fine. We got oil pressure. Everything seems to be working as it should. So get her backed out of the garage here and see how she does. Okay, here we go. We're pulling out on the street. Oh, it's loud. Still got a bit of a miss in it. I think we have a bad oil pack. It smooths out. It's a little bit rough on hard acceleration, but then it smooths out under low load, so I think we're gonna have to replace some oil packs on this one. Did you hear it? So when you're just running down the road nice and smooth and not really getting into it, it's perfectly fine. It's like we're getting ready to go up a grade now. I have to get into it a little bit, then it starts to miss out. As soon as I crest this hill and start going down, all 8 of them are going to start hitting again. Coming to the top, and we're smoothing out. We're just slightly accelerating. Now everything's working as it should. So under hard acceleration, we're losing, pretty sure we're losing spark. We also don't have any O2 sensors because they took the catalytic converters and the O2 sensors with that. So there's that as well. I would say the coil packs really should do it because it should run a lot smoother without the O2 sensors, I believe. Of course, that's how Chevy works. I'm not sure about Ford's, but just cruising down the road like this is perfectly fine, nice and smooth. The suspension on this thing is actually pretty nice. It doesn't wander all over the road. It drives straight. There's no weird noises. There's no bumps. There's no creaks. And for Crown Vic, it rides pretty smooth. This was kind of taken care of until, you know, it got put away. So I'm sure it had a lot of maintenance. It probably has a lot of new suspension. I believe I saw some paperwork that it had a lot of the rear end changed on the car. So the suspension work was done and then neglected after that. So it rides down the road great. It's an excellent riding car. It's suddenly starting to run a whole lot better. I don't know if that has to do with the temperature and the air-fuel ratio at a certain temperature of the engine, or if things are just starting to heal themselves. But it's actually running really good right now. It's got a lot of power. Sounds 100% better. Okay, definitely working way better. We're at a stop sign. Let's do a little bit of a takeoff here. There's a couple of sputters. Oh, she's solid. Oh, better slow her down. She is moving out. Wow. Nice. Way better. I don't know what the problem was, but it's not there anymore. This is running just fine. Kind of makes me not want to sell it now. I'm going to go ahead and head back to the house, and I'll probably make up an ad for this at a certain price point, and if it sells for that, it sells for that. If it doesn't sell for that, we take it back to storage, cover it up, put it away for a little while, and revisit it later. So let's head back to the house. That guy totally just ran a stop sign too. Too bad this isn't a real police car. Alright, I call that a successful test drive. It started off a little bit rough, like a lot rough, but it turned itself around. It definitely is running very well. So like I said before, I think we're just going to go ahead and put a price tag on this, toss it up on the face place market thing, and see what we can get off of it. We'll put it up there for a fair price, but not too cheap. Really don't want to sell it, but I really need the room. So I think we'll go and throw it up there. I don't know, maybe $1,500, I would say. I mean, it still needs some work. The brakes are still a little sloshy, and that exhaust needs to be fixed. And you know, it's got the little rust hole there. But this is a good car. This is a good first car for any teenager. They would definitely enjoy driving this around, I'm sure. So I think that's going to do it. I really don't want to sell this car, but need to get rid of stuff. I got 20 cars. Something has to go. I've sold a couple already. Need to sell a couple more and invest the money in a bigger and better project. So if it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, I'll be happy. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Street Rag Garage. Until next time.